Welcome to the Creative AI Show. What do we have this week, Bryon?
Hey, Rosh, happy to be here. We are two creative guys talking AI. And you know what? I'm getting a little bit of headline shock here. Every week it's continually the biggest week in AI. There's all these
Yes.
news, all these releases, there's everything. And you know what? My advice today is about none of that. I want to actually just talk to the creatives about ways to use AI effectively. I was in the lab this weekend working on some creative projects, the next music video for my band. I was able to get a couple videos out this weekend. Thank you for publishing them on our YouTube page. So I found some things during my workflow that I really thought our audience might want to hear about. So I'm going to talk about some of the best ways to ask one AI how to use another AI.
Mm.
And then also, I want to talk about the benefits of the turbo versions of a lot of these programs that we're using.
Oh, okay.
So we talk about these updates all the time, and oh, there's version 2, 2.1, blah, blah, blah. And then we say, oh, there's turbo. And all we really mention is that it's faster. But actually, there's a distinct advantage to these turbo versions, and I really want to speak to that into
Mm.
our audience so that way they can use it, effectively. Because I was going back and forth, this weekend doing all that. So what do you have going on today?
Well, it's the biggest week in AI.
Of course it
And I
is.
got all the headlines.
The hyperbole is real.
Hey, Grok 3 is
Hmm.
poised to launch today. It has not been launched as we're recording. We are going to publish this podcast today, but Grok 3 is not out yet. But I'm looking forward to it because Grok 2 is pretty solid.
Pretty good.
But Musk has been saying 3 is just, comes at things a little bit differently and with some really good insight. So I'm looking forward to that. And my question next, because we've done a lot of comparisons. Um, my question is the image generator even better? Because
I
the old
hope.
one was pretty good.
It's good, and I just finally hit my free limit, and I've been playing with that primarily this weekend. It was the most I've gotten into Grok. So I'm excited to hear about this and see because I started to hit some limitations with the image generator
Okay.
when I was trying to get certain angles and different things. I even said to it, "Hey, Chat GPT does this better," and it got mad and tried to come back to me with a couple more images that were improved, and some of them were a little cryptic. It was kind of fun.
Oh yeah.
Maybe I'll do a
I,
video
I I
about that.
love
So
one versus the other and
yeah.
letting them know.
Right.
So,
Yeah.
so we're going to talk about Grok. We're going to talk about Perplexity research that
Okay, good.
dropped.
Yep.
And there was a new one called Mistral, and I did a couple of
Hmm.
videos on that one, and it's starting to pop up in regular conversation. So I'll talk about those three launches, and then I want to talk about very specifically my first week with Operator. Yep, we've been
Yeah.
talking about it for a couple weeks. I've had credit card in hand, and eventually I said, I need to do this. How good is this? Is it going to help me? And it might have paid for itself the first day. So I'll talk about that
Whoa.
next time around.
Okay, cool.
What do you
Well,
got?
I'm very interested in your topics today, so I'm going to try to keep mine short. But yeah, I was working this weekend a lot on going bouncing back and forth between different AIs. So I've got my Chat GPT as kind of like my idea spot where I create different things there, and then I've been using Grok in two different directions. So I'll keep two different Groks open, where one will be kind of my conversation, and then the other one will be my Grok visualize, which actually I'm hoping in 3.0 that they kind of combine both of those into a similar workflow, and I don't have to keep two tabs. So I'm anticipating that. But what I found is I was often going back and forth asking one AI to write a prompt for a different one, and I was having some really good success. So I was telling ChatGPT or Grok, be like, hey, I'm using Pika to animate these images that you're giving me, but I'm having a little bit of struggle. Write the prompt to use for Pika 2.1. Write the prompt to use for Pika Turbo. And I'll allude to those differences in a little bit later when I talk about my next topic. But just the fact that I was able to have one spot be a good creative canvas, and that's exactly what I did was with ChatGPT. I had a workflow canvas going, and then the fact that I was able to bounce back and forth and be able to kind of improve the performance of these programs by using outputs from different ones, I thought was fascinating.
Hmm.
So as much as these programs want to make fun of each other, they also they know how to use each other, which is that's
Yeah.
pretty cool. And I'm curious with Operator if you can actually automate it to use different AIs and different things like that. So I want to talk to you about that a bit more. So, what was great about this was I was able to have multiple programs in my workflow. And then what I was able to learn is the little subtle differences too between what these programs do really well. I told you a couple weeks ago, I was ready to cancel my Runway subscription. I was done
Yeah.
with it. I was getting some really bad outputs from it, some things that were boring. I was getting better outputs in my Wondershare Filmora program than I
I
was
got
from
to tell
that.
you something real quick with
Yeah.
Runway. I'm kind of peeved about is their frames. What, $76 for their image generator? I'm sure it's
Yeah.
great, but
Right.
$76?
Yeah.
Anyway, go ahead. Sorry.
Right. Well, even Pika got me a little bit frustrated when I signed up for their first $8 a month one. I outputted the first video and there's watermarks all over it. And
Right.
I'm like, oh, come on. So I ended up having to upgrade to the $27 a month one.
Oh,
Now we're
really?
starting to get into some numbers here that are, pretty decent.
Okay.
You get a few subscriptions that are in the $30 a month range and it starts
Yeah,
adding up.
it does.
But it ended up being worth it. And, also the quantity of credits that you get. And again,
Sure.
that'll be another speaking point I'll talk to you a little later in the show talking about Turbo and the advantages of that.
Mm,
So Runway 3.0, what I've discovered is rather than giving actual motion to our characters in it, what Runway is really good at is changing camera angles and making things appear dynamic. So whether you want to swirl around the character and show a 360 world view and
oh,
have
right.
it
Good.
generate what's outside of the frame, Runway's super good at that.
Okay.
But to animate the character and get them to look natural and kind of have it do its own thing in that way, that's where you get some of the struggles of Runway. But that's where Pika steps in and knocks it out of the
Sure.
park. So Pika is really good. Like, that video I shared on Saturday where it showed the emotion and the distraught in the gentleman's face, the main
Yeah.
character.
Yeah.
And I mean, Rosh, that I watched that many times, and outside of really zooming in and maybe seeing a little bit of blurred motion lines, I mean, I felt like it captured emotion well.
Yeah.
So, to start, I had a couple of these little clips where I started them in Pika, and then I brought them over and imported the output from Pika into Runway to then add some dynamic camera movement. So now I'm taking two AI programs to make something that's kind of outside the box. And um,
Did it hold together? I mean, did it
yeah,
change the character?
no, no, it,
No.
it held together
Very good.
nicely. Yeah, it actually, they work
Excellent.
together really, really cool. I'll do another video this upcoming week showing the output of working both of those together. But
Yeah.
what's really cool with Runway is in one of its modes where you choose image, you have all of these stats on the bottom where you can change the axis angle or the zoom in or the zoom out or the camera panning up or panning down.
Right. Right. Yeah.
You've got about 8 or 9 different toggleable features to where you can just scroll a little bar and have it output, with this dynamic camera change.
Nice.
So it's like, one program is controlling your actor, whereas the other program's controlling your cameraman.
Yeah. Right.
Put it in that perspective, and again, we're the creative directors in our head,
Yep.
and we've got to then control the actor, we've got to control the cameraman, we got to do all this because our butts are in a seat in front of a computer, we're not on an actual set. So, this is what the future of being an AI director is. And one of my biggest piece of advice is today is to ask one AI program how to use another one and figure out a good workflow to combine these.
Yeah.
And then you're able to get a really good output and something that, is going to work for your creative endeavors or even be something good for your, toughest client.
Nice. Very good. Nice.
Thank you. Thank you.
No, that's a great combination. In knowing those combinations is so important in the future. Just
Yeah.
knowing which AI, they're all going to get better and better, but as they get better and better, certain ones will still be better at different
Correct.
things. I mean, just
Yeah.
because there are so many different ways to approach it. And if you get better in one area, people will come to you for that one specific or series of features. So that's pretty cool.
Precisely. All right, so back to you. A whole bunch of things launching, coming out.
Yeah, and
Again,
I
the
didn't even
biggest
mention
week in
all of
AI.
them.
I know.
Really great.
There's a lot.
Well, we
happening.
have Grok 3, and obviously I don't have much information other than it's supposed to be just launching the best one so far. And I don't doubt it because it's not like we're sitting with an AI that we're like, yeah, it's not really that good. Hopefully this new one will be better. No, this one's really good now. So,
Right.
you know, I think that if Grok 3 is that much better, it could be a big week in AI,
Right. Well, let's take it with a grain of salt. It is just an Elon tweet at this point.
Yeah,
But
yeah, we're at this point in time, but it is to come out today, so maybe
yes.
next week we'll have a little more to talk about.
Yeah.
Perplexity launched research So you can do deep
Yes.
research like you do with when you pay $200 for ChatGPT.
Yep.
Thanks, Perplexity. And that one's, I believe, free.
Okay.
But you have to know that's also deep seek. So they have research. So you have a few options here. And it's pretty good. So it's worth heading over. Speaking of Chat GPT, the roadmap to Chat GPT 5 has been
Hmm.
laid out by Sam Altman. And so next will be 4.5. And eventually that'll be the last one that's separate from the variations of like the O3s and the O3 minis. It's just the goal will be to wrap it all up into one. And that'll
Right.
probably be Chat GPT 5.
I
And
I
that,
mean, honestly, even us, we're people who are doing this a ton, and
yeah,
we're experts, if you will. But there's still, I don't know all the differences between the versions and when to use this one, when to use that one.
yeah.
I guess and try sometimes, and I just want it to do it for me. And that's my biggest excitement that I want to, blurt about, GPT-5 is that it's going to help use the right mode based upon the prompt you give it.
Yeah. I mean, I think the biggest thing is that when you use a research or a deep like an O1 reasoning model and you just want it to proofread something
Hmm.
and you accidentally say, hey, proofread this, and next thing you know you have a whole dissertation versus, so you got to pop back over to 4.0. And part
Right.
of this conversation is it should know, and
Hmm.
it will. So hopefully 5 will be amazing and above our expectations. The next one is Le Chat, which is Mistral, and that's a French company that's
Okay.
released, and it's pretty good. So it also has imagery. Make sure that you check the box. You have to open up the underneath. At least it was for me, and I had to click the box, and then it allowed me to do image generation, which was really good. So this is kind of Europe saying, "Hey, we're putting our flag in the
Hmm.
ground, and we're going to be a player in this." And it is pretty darn good. So I compared it to others, and I thought it held up very well. Lastly, Gemini can start to remember your conversations and from
Ah.
past. So that's big because sometimes you have a conversation. Now, I had a conversation about a month ago, and I tested. Do you remember the formula I asked you to remember? And and it said to me, "Yeah, I remember. You asked what was pi? Something related to
Hmm.
pi yesterday at 10:34. No such thing happened."
Oh no.
So it lied to
Little
me
hallucination there. Oh,
straight up.
Gemini.
So
Yeah.
I'm assuming that eventually, now, oddly enough, there was a conversation about pi that may have been done in Google,
Hmm.
but I don't know. It wasn't a
Maybe you were
question.
getting
So
a
anything, I think,
recipe or ingredients for baking a pie, maybe. Yeah.
that, you know what? I think it more had to do with, I think it, I think it heard a video. Let's
Hmm.
put the tinfoil hat on here. It
Yeah, yeah.
heard a video where
Always
somebody
listen.
was talking about the differences of, oh, yes, yes, that's what it was. There's a video about the differences of how different people in different, like how an engineer describes pi, how the
Ah,
boss describes pi, how, it's just it's a funny thing. And that
worth
probably
listening.
happened the day before, but it was not a question to Gemini.
Maybe
So
that's a
that
little overreach. Maybe
that
it's
was
listening a little too much. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. So now that I think
Interesting.
about it, okay, great.
All right.
Thanks, Gemini.
Yeah, exactly.
But
All right. Well, I'm
going
going to turn
forward,
off
you
my
can be
phone
able to
for the
refer
remainder of
old
this.
questions. I'm sorry, what'd you say?
So I'll turn off my phone for the remainder of this so
Yeah,
it's
no
not
kidding.
listening.
No
So,
kidding. All right, back to
all
you,
right.
sir.
Very good. So yes, we've been talking for a while with these different AI programs and how they'll come out with version 2.1, but then there's always seems to be a turbo version,
Yeah.
and to the general people using this, it's like what does that even mean? And so I want to get into when to use turbo and when not. And now oftentimes people are like the speed. What does it matter? You get an answer anyway, whether you're waiting 5 seconds or you're waiting 30 seconds. It's fine. You're still getting an answer. You should appreciate that, right?
Right.
But not so much. To say, put yourself in the lab here. You're working on video editing something, and you want to get a 5-second clip of a video, and If you do the full version, it could take a good 3 to 4 minutes to output as opposed to 20 seconds. And
The
in the
cling can be up to
general,
10 minutes.
oh wow, yeah, you see, and there's a lot of high level processing happening there. Whereas with the turbo versions of it, oftentimes it's getting this animation just fine. Meaning you're not going to get any further if you go with the full high-end version, and you're going to be getting a lot of things that will work for what it is you're trying to get. But then also think about the fact that we're paying monthly for these programs, and we only get a certain quantity of credits. And
Right.
while it seems like two or 3,000 credits feels like a lot when each output can be as much as 5 to 50 credits. But if you're trying to create a lot of little clips, maybe you've got a lot of clients across the board, or you're trying to get really
Right.
intricate with your project, maybe you don't have the cash flow to spend to use the full version to get every one of these clips. And that's 50 credits out the window. And sometimes the prompt that you put in was entirely wrong. And the clip that you get is just garbage. And you're like, all right, well, there's 50 credits out the window. Boy, I wish I tried this prompt first with Turbo to see if I was headed in the right direction with it.
Good point.
And so you can use it, you can use Turbo to have multiple variations quickly to be able to see what's working for your expectation with this. And then if you get one that you feel like, all right, Turbo gave me a really good version, I've got my prompt really narrowed down. All right, now let's go to the full Pika 2.1. And let's put in this same prompt and see if we're going to get that final really high quality product that we're looking for. So it's a really good way to take your workflow to speed it up, make sure it's cost effective, and make sure that just you're testing these prompts in a good way to be able to get the output of it. I know you've used a few of these programs before. Do you find that there's been different times where you've gone to Turbo, you've gone to 2.1? Has it been just time based? Where's
Well,
your
yeah, if
direction?
I'm just messing around, Turbo is great, especially on
Mhm.
Pika, which is relatively new, and that's great. They released their their new version, and then their 2.1, and then they gave you
Mhm.
Turbo 2 weeks later, and it saves you a lot of money. And
Right.
especially, if I'm just doing, and I find this to be a problem just because of what we do. We're trying to test things.
Mhm.
And some of these are pretty stingy with their credits, some of these
Right.
platforms, and,
Correct.
or even a free trial is like, okay, here's your one thing. Great. Well, guess
Yeah.
what your video is going to be all about? That one thing. That's all I'm going to share. But yeah, to your point, when you have an idea, you're working something through, having Turbo just spit it out as kind of a proof, preview before you go big time with it. Very, very helpful. Totally agree.
Very cool. All right. Well, to throw it back your way, I'm on the edge of my seat here. Tell us about your first week with Operator.
So is Operator going to be the future of work? That's what everybody is asking Operator or uh, other agents. And
Hmm.
well, mine I have named Agent Otto,
Hmm.
and Agent Otto I've given an email, a Gmail, so it can sign in to different platforms. So to
Wow.
answer your first question, can it go to other places, sign in, and do something for you? The first thing I did was have it write an article in Google Drive. Then I said, go get, as part of it, go get an image from Leonardo. And it did exactly that. It signed
Wow.
in, created an image, downloaded it, took it back to Google Drive, put it in the article, downloaded the article as a PDF, and emailed me.
Wow.
That
Now,
was just,
now, if you're getting an article as a PDF, then you could actually have it go to the next step and create a podcast using
oh, that's a good point. So
yeah.
so the point being ultimately here is that if anything you can do, it can do for you. Now, it's going to have stumbling blocks along the
Right.
way, and it does, especially when working with email. Although it's its own email, it wants you to have that browser open because it's doing something sensitive. But it's getting better. I had it write 3 articles today, download them, and then upload them to another drive somewhere. and it did a great job. And after it came across a stumbling block, and once we got through that, it went on and completed the process. Now, this is what I've been learning is that just like prompt engineering, this is like managing a person, like a new hire.
Hmm.
And what might you do for that new hire if they have a job? Creative list of steps. So that's exactly what I've done. I have my list of steps for jobs and projects I want it to do. And so I can have it go into my SEO, the rank tracker, and go to a very specific client, download the PDF, analyze the PDF, or
Wow.
actually analyze it before it downloads it, and then take it over to its Gmail and send the client that PDF with a little analysis of what was happening on it. And that has been helpful. These kinds of things are getting better. And I have to say, this is version one.
Right.
And it's really it can do work that is billable that I would be doing. So I don't have to do it. I just send it. So you have little step-by-step recipes. You have prompt management in a sense. You're managing these prompts. So here are the steps along the way. Go do it. And I can copy and paste and they'll go do it. So I will often start with maybe 5 steps, but I'll go through it with it the first time, just like you might with a new employee, and figure out where those stumbling blocks are.
Right. That makes
And
sense.
and then you can say, okay, I'm going to add another 3 or 4 steps so it doesn't come back and ask me about this. So to your point, you just thought of something really good, that it could do. The answer is yes. I
Yeah.
mean, well, just like over the week, what else did it do? I had to go in and analyze our last 3 YouTube videos and send us both the results.
Yeah. That's great.
So, you know,
Good analysis too.
yeah, it was good analysis.
Mm-hmm.
If you want more analysis, then you have to ask more questions. Obviously, you can't read your mind, but
Yet.
yeah.
Yet.
But think of all of the things you do online. It's a AI with a browser. And when you give it, especially like Google Drive, it can create Excel. Think of all the tools in Google Drive alone
Right.
and in the Excel sheets and the docs, and you go in and clean up your Google Drive and create these folders and do these things for me or whatever it needs to be done. And you just have to keep an eye on it right now. It'll come back and ask you questions along the way, but it's getting better. I mean, today the first part of the was seamless. It never. I was expecting to come back. It didn't. It was just going to town, doing its job. It was
Wow.
great.
And
So
you just have
anyway,
one monitor open and it's just working away. You can see
yeah,
its little
yeah,
cursor moving.
exactly right. You just let it go. You just look over and say, "Oh, no questions yet," and keep going. And a lot of times it'll say, "Hey, I've downloaded this PDF. I'm ready to upload it to the other PDF. Do you want me to do that?" Yes. Okay. Boom. So things like that. And
Yeah.
you'll learn little prompts like if you try something 5 times and you don't get it right, ask because it will find itself trying and retrying because it's just pushing the wrong button. It's
Okay.
like, no, the button's over here. It can do that. It just gets confused because, for example, there are buttons that are very similar, but are for different things. And
Hmm.
so it got confused.
I'm curious if it can get you in any trouble, clicking the wrong thing or, downloading a virus or, anything like that
Sure.
that maybe.
And
Yeah.
that is exactly why I've given its own Gmail. That is
Yeah.
why
That's
I
a good
have
point.
given it its own accounts. Like I have like for some services you can add additional team members. So
Hmm.
Agent Auto has its own team member access. So it can
Right.
be revoked. I know where it came from. Or if it's a tool that I use and it's a free tool, I'll just say sign in via your Google. And it knows how to do that. And yes, yes, the big question, does it check the box? Are you a robot? Yes, it
Right.
does. are,
Oh, so
are you
good.
human? It's like, yep, yep, click.
Looks the other way. Yeah.
Like,
Oh,
we're
I
all those
love it.
like, how do you answer this question? Who knew? just click that box and move on.
Yeah, it can probably detect how many buses are in those squares better than we can. Let's be honest.
Absolutely, because it's visual. It's
Yeah,
visual. And that's how those AIs were trained with that exact that those captchas were helping us train those AIs. So of course they should be able to do it because we trained them to do it all these years. We thought they thought they're just being mean to us, but they were actually training AIs all this time. So
very
anyway,
good.
that's
Well,
that's the
yeah,
deal, man. It's
yeah, I'm excited to
yes.
see some updates on that. I want to see it actually working. I mean, I think that's maybe
Okay.
what our audience is curious about. So we'll.
Here is the good news.
Hmm.
You can record it. Now, I mean,
That's
it
great.
actually has a function to record what it did as an
Okay,
actual video within there. So you can export that, what you did and the
perfect.
whole process. So for you to review later or to share with your friends who have not ponied up the
Right.
$200.
Yeah.
But I
Well,
have
I'm
been using the deep
starting to.
research that is now free on Perplexity.
Right.
Anyway, I mean the $200 version one, which is about the same. But anyway, but I think in all sincerity, I think I'm only going to have the $200 version for a couple months. Why? Because I'm sure operators can become available to
Just a part of
everybody.
five. Yeah.
Exactly,
Yeah.
unless there's something new that keeps me in there. But there are other agents out there that are available that you can get that are a lot less expensive. I just wanted to use this one specifically because I thought it was going to be pretty good, and it is.
And it is. No, very good. Yeah, I've gotten these emails from Otto. I can only picture the bus driver from The Simpsons, but I think it's perfectly named. He's driving the bus, buddy.
Yes, very
So,
good.
all right. I think that's everything we've got today, right?
It is.
We're good. All right. Well, we're two creative guys talking AI. If you are just listening to us on your favorite, podcast platform, we always suggest you pop on over to our YouTube channel, give us a like, follow, and subscribe. We're trying to actually show examples of what we're doing in these short videos, so you can really get, some context to what we're talking about each week. So pop on over creativeaishow.com, and we'll also on our YouTube channel, Creative AI Show, and. Until then, we are two creative guys talking AI.
Talk to you next week.